Okay, guys. So today you're going to do two things. First thing is you're going to create a colorful periodic table, getting to know the periodic table. You need to make sure that is done first in the first period, fourth period, before you move on to the second thing. So we're actually starting a new unit all about the periodic table. So we learned about the electrons. We learned about different families on the periodic table and how they have similar properties. But we're going to explore that a little bit more because there's other things in the world of honors chemistry that you need to know and understand. Like how easy is it to pull an electron and make off of an atom and make it an ion? Or what happens to the radius of atoms when you go down a family or when you go across the periodic table, and why does that occur? So there's different things about the periodic table where trends emerge when we start to dive into what is going on in the periodic table and why those things are happening. So the first thing you're going to do is just an activity on getting to know the periodic table. This is over on the side counter in the lab. I don't know which way it is, depending on where you're sitting. But over in the lab, there's a sign that says Honors Chemistry Period 4. You have to do this activity first, and my ideal plan is for you to finish it within the first period and turn it into the turn-in box, and then start the next activity that I'll explain in a second. So this is just a single paper. On the front of it has all the instructions. It's very, very simple. And on the back side of it is a blank periodic table you're going to be filling in. You need some colored pencils. You can use the internet. You can use your big periodic table. You can use whatever you need to do this. And there's markers over there too if you want to use that. So try not to take your time on this because it is intended that you get this done within the first period. When you're done, put your name on it, turn it into the turn-in box. The second thing you're going to do for fifth period is create a puzzle periodic table. So over on the side counter again, there is something that says for period 3 and period 5. So you're grabbing that one for period 5. There's a packet. It's a stapled packet. It has 3 pages in it. You want to grab some scissors and some tape or glue as well because you're going to be gluing this together. And then if you have any extra time, or if you run out of time, I should say, and you don't get finished, grab a little plastic bag and you can put your extra pieces in there so you don't lose them coming back tomorrow. I will let you know at the end of this video what you need to get through by the end of the period, fifth period today, so that you know where you should come back Friday with what finished. So this packet is stapled up in the corner. My suggestion is just to tear all 3 of the pages apart from each other. The first page is the instruction sheet. So you're really going to be going through the procedures and not skipping anything. Don't skip any parts of the procedures. It's really important to read through all of them. On the back, at the bottom, there's post-lab questions. At the top, you'll answer when you're totally done. But at the bottom, there is a list of further instructions from what I'll give here. You can read through those as well. I would do that kind of first before you really start anything because it gives a lot, or even read it halfway in between. The other 2 papers, there's one paper that is what looks kind of like a periodic table, I guess, or just a bunch of little squares. Cut out all the squares, all except this little row right here that's totally blank. You don't need to cut those out and use those for anything. But all of these little squares, this is the key, so you don't want to lose that. You want to make sure that you know what all the numbers. What you'll notice about this is there's letters in the center of all of them, except there's some that have asterisks on them. You're going to start with all the ones that have letters on them, and then you're going to work with the ones that have asterisks later once you've figured out where all the ones that have letters on them go. Notice there's a lot of blanks too. There's a lot of just lines that don't have anything on them. By the time you're done and you turn this in, all the lines will have something written on it from you. So make sure that you understand that. The last page is blank. It's a totally blank, what looks like a scrunched together periodic table. I'll explain that in a second. This is what you're actually going to be turning into me. Once you have all your pieces that you just cut out, all pasted on here where you know they go. And then on the back side of it is where you answer your post-lab questions. And this is the only thing that I'm looking for that you have completed. So when you are working on this, a couple of things to keep in mind. This little periodic table that's blank is not a traditional periodic table. This is what it actually is. So let me show you on the periodic table. This is actually just the S block right here and the P block right here. It doesn't include the D block, so none of these elements, and it doesn't include the F block. So what this periodic table is those 2 blocks that I just put boxes around, all scrunched together. So you're not including any of these elements right here at all. And you're not including any of the lanthanides and actinides. You'll only find the S block elements and the P block elements. They're called the main group elements. And that's why it looks funny. It doesn't look like a traditional periodic table because it's scrunched together version of the periodic table. The other thing is when you're working with all of these little squares, remember how I said you're only going to work with the ones that have a letter in the center? There's a whole bunch at the bottom that have a little asterisk in the center. Just set those aside and leave those for later. Put all the ones that have a letter on them in the first 4 rows. So in row 1, 2, 3, and 4, that's where all of the elements with a letter on them go. And in rows 5 and 6 down here at the bottom, there are all the asterisked ones. So save those last 2 rows for later. Only fill up the first 4 rows using all the clues. So once you have everything cut out, you're going to look at like I said, read through this back thing. That helps you too. It's saying a lot of the stuff that I'm saying. But what you need to do is you need to read through the procedure. So I'm going to skip to procedure number 2. I would not suggest that. Go back to procedure number 1. But I just want to point out a couple of things. In procedure number 2, it tells you the following sets of elements belong together in groups Z, R, and D. So once you have cut out Z, R, and D, since you know they're going to be in the same group or family together, put them in a pile. They don't go in that order, top to bottom, Z, R, D. They're going to go in some scrambled order, but at least you know those ones go in the same family together. And then it says P, S, I, and F all go together. Well, that has 4 in it, and so does the next group. So, of course, you know those 2 groups are going to either be this set of elements because there's 4 there, or this set of elements because you have hydrogen and helium as the extra element. So use your logic and reasoning skills as you go through these things. So then it goes through a whole list of like, J has an atomic number that's 3 times that of T. So it's just like a puzzle where you're trying to figure out where everything goes. You can use your big periodic table for this. But what you need to understand about your big periodic table is on this, it's going to have like an atomic radius and different numbers. They're not going to match with the periodic table because the units are different. And I don't want you to sit and do conversions or anything like that, but you can look at the trends that you see in those things to help you figure out what goes where. So work on the top 4 rows of this blank periodic table first with all those lettered elements, and then start on the bottom 2. So by the time you get to class on Friday, or by the end of class on Thursday, you need to have at least the top 4 rows completed. The bottom 2 rows you should be working on completing. Ideally, I'd have you complete the entire thing in class, but if you can at least get through the top 4 rows and then start working on filling out where you think the bottom ones go, that would be great. Once you get the top 4 rows figured out, glue them down. But don't glue one down and have it stuck there and then decide that it needs to change to something else. Don't glue it down until you're totally certain that they all go there. All right. Good luck.